At exactly 5:30 a.m., just as the morning light began to bleed across the horizon, the silence shattered with the wail of sirens. I stepped outside in my slippers, clutching a half-filled coffee mug, and watched in disbelief as 5 fully loaded fire trucks roared down my private dirt road, dust rising like smoke behind them. But it wasn't the trucks that stopped my heart, it was what they stopped for. There, in the middle of my back acreage, the same spot scheduled for a live fire training session, stood a bubblegum pink tent surrounded by tiki torches and a breakfast table. A woman in a leopard print robe was roasting marshmallows over a tiny fire pit, like she was camping at a resort. The lead fire truck skidded slightly as it braked, headlights casting harsh light over the surreal scene. The crew exchanged baffled looks. I stood frozen, thinking I must be dreaming. Then the woman, unbothered by the engines and the uniformed crew gathering around her, slowly turned her head, blew a smoke ring, and shouted, "You're blocking my sunrise." Yesterday, everything had been quiet. I'd walked the perimeter of the property, checking it over before the fire department arrived. They'd used my undeveloped land for years, training recruits, running hose drills, and burning old test structures. It was a win-win. They got realistic training, and I got a solid stipend and some goodwill from the city. But there hadn't been so much as a tire track out there. Yet somehow, overnight, this woman had popped up like a fairy godmother from hell, loud, smug, and about as welcome as a wasp in a lunchbox. I walked down the path as the fire chief confronted her. She had sunglasses slipping off her nose and an attitude that could fill the entire valley. "This is public land," she snapped. "I have squatters' rights. You can't just barge in here like you own the place." The chief, a seasoned vet who once walked into a burning meth lab without blinking, looked 2 seconds away from calling in a SWAT team. I stepped between them and introduced myself as the actual owner. She scoffed and pulled out a crumpled paper from her tote bag. "I rented this property on Craigslist," she declared. "Paid good money, too." I looked at the paper. It was a blurry Craigslist ad for a private camping retreat, with no address, no coordinates, and definitely no legal legitimacy. I told her she'd been scammed, and that in less than 30 minutes, this place would be lit up for a live fire simulation. Her eyes narrowed, and she smirked like she was winning a chess game. "Then cancel your little playdate," she snapped. "I'm not moving." The fire chief pulled me aside. "We can't postpone this. 3 departments are scheduled. We have recruits en route." I nodded grimly. She wasn't just trespassing, she was putting an entire emergency response operation at risk. I tried reasoning with her, even offered help to move her gear. She refused and instead started live-streaming herself, ranting about armed agents violating her rights. Her live stream was titled, "Save Cheryl's Camp, Stop the Tyranny." Behind us, firefighters were getting restless. They needed to build the training frames, lay hoses, and get the burn started. Cheryl, meanwhile, popped open a soda and acted like she owned the place. Then she made it worse. She dialed 911 on speakerphone, started screaming about being under siege by violent firemen. The dispatcher, already briefed, calmly told her she was trespassing. But she kept yelling about lawsuits, damages, and trauma therapy. That's when the chief had enough. He barked orders, and the crew began setting up. Metal frames went up just feet from her tent. Smoke machines hissed, releasing thick fog. Cheryl's smug grin vanished. She stood up, arms flailing, screaming about spiritual retreats and illegal invasions. But the trucks didn't stop. The drills began. Hoses whooshed past her tent, dousing her fire pit and flipping her breakfast plates. She shrieked, "Assault!" and tried dragging her tent away, only to collapse it on herself. Then she fled to the road, still filming. She called 911 again, this time demanding the National Guard. When dispatch confirmed she was obstructing emergency services, the chief signaled 2 off-duty officers on site. But Cheryl saw them coming and bolted back into the smoke-filled training area. She weaved through hoses, shrieking and live-streaming, knocking over a cooler and causing a trainee to trip face-first into the dirt. Then, in a fit of chaos, she grabbed a hose and dragged it across the field, wrecking a crew's setup. The chief exploded, sending the officers in. It took 2 men and a firefighter to haul her out as she kicked over buckets of fire suppressant and screamed about constitutional rights. Training halted while deputies arrived. Cheryl collapsed to her knees, sobbing about being a single woman under attack. When told she could either leave or be arrested, she nodded, then sprinted toward the nearest fire truck and climbed onto the back, clinging to the hose reel and yelling, "This is my lifeboat. I'm not going down with the Titanic." Deputies pulled her off. As they loaded her into the car, she shrieked through the window, "You'll all hear from my lawyer." And we did. 3 days later, I received a formal lawsuit. She was suing me, the fire department, and the city for emotional distress, property damage, and spiritual vandalism. My lawyer, Lisa, took one look and said, "This is the dumbest thing I've read all month." Then we hit back. Lisa found Cheryl's history: 3 states, multiple fake campsite scams, all ending in threats and lawsuits. We filed a countersuit for malicious prosecution, trespassing, and interference with emergency services. The fire department joined in. Court was a spectacle. Cheryl waddled in wearing an oversized gray suit, faking a limp and clutching her lawyer's arm. Her attorney gave a melodramatic speech about trauma and soggy marshmallows. Lisa responded with documents, timestamps, security footage, and Karen's scamming history. The judge didn't buy a single excuse. Cheryl's case was dismissed with prejudice. She was ordered to pay restitution, legal fees, and best of all, complete 200 hours of community service with the fire department. When I drove past the station on her first day, she was there, red-faced and miserable in yellow turnout pants, scrubbing hoses. She argued, whined, even faked a back injury. The chief wasn't having it. He assigned her to the worst grunt work. Cameras rolled as she dragged hoses across the dirt like dead snakes. Then, karma struck. She slipped into a muddy puddle, flopped face down, then screamed about unsafe conditions and intentional sabotage. The chief handed her a mop. Weeks passed. Photos of her mopping bathrooms and fumbling with gear made quiet rounds among the crew. She stopped posting online. No rants. No live streams. Just silence. On her final day, the station held a small celebration for the recruits, not for her. Cheryl dropped her uniform in a bin and trudged away to a beat-up van. No words, no drama. Just defeat. The department renamed the training field Cheryl's Retreat, complete with a handmade sign showing a cartoon tent on fire. Every time I drive by, I smile. She thought she could scream her way to a payout. Instead, she got exactly what she deserved: mud, mop water, and a permanent place in town lore as the woman who tried to sue the fire department and lost everything.